None of them had been able to fight alone. None of them had been able to fight alone. After the 9 mighty ones' resonance of divine sound was broken by Yi Futian, none had been able to endure a single one of Yi Futian's strike alone, and all of them were trampled. Other than those special geniuses, not even the ones usually lauded as the most powerful would have been qualified enough to fight him when he was combining mystical ways with the divine elephant stomping the sky. That one battle enabled others to learn new things about Yi Futian's powers. They learned just how shockingly powerful it would be when ultimate skills of the divine elephants, divine elephant stomping the sky and divine elephant void-splitting fist, were used in conjunction with celestial soul attraction. So that is the celestial soul attraction which has been lost for a millennium? Some of the older generations from Futian City looked at Yi Futian with a solemn expression. Not only was he able to inherit the mystical way, but he had also been able to use it perfectly, letting all in Futian City see how powerful that lost mystical way was. It was indeed fortunate on their part to be able to bear witness to that moment. Despite not being of the celestial gate of vast heaven, he nonetheless fought on behalf of the celestial gate on that day. He had also been willing to teach that mystical way to others, and that made many anticipate what was in store for him in the future. Many wondered if the Heavenly Mandate dynasty would be able to do anything to stop him and Gu Donglu if they were to reign supreme at the pinnacle of the realm. The one of supreme body of the great path of the Violet Heavenly Palace had already lost, and that happened before Yi Futian used mystical ways. A battle would not have been all that much of an issue to him now. Many wondered who would be able to take on Yi Futian. The man learned 2 ultimate skills, and he would only get stronger from then on out. The possibilities were limitless. The Crown Prince of the Heavenly Mandate dynasty looked at Yi Futian. He talked about the limitations of the power of one when he visited Qin He at the palace, and then had 9 mighty ones by his side repel Yu Sheng. At that moment, Yi Futian defeated 9 single-handedly and proceeded to ask him how the power of one fared. The times they lived in were indeed interesting. He never expected to meet Gu Donglu, who met Gu Tianxing and inherited the creational powers that Gu Tianxing gathered. He then met Yi Futian, who was able to reign supreme somewhere. He never expected to see the brothers become so unbelievably capable. However, he deemed that to be interesting. The higher one climbed, the colder it felt. Being an undisputed champion was sure to be boring. The ones from Violet Heavenly Palace looked at Yi Futian and felt restless. It was not only Zhang Yuan who was vexed, as that man who shot to fame at Zhang Yuan's expense continued to prove just how powerful he was. It was as if he was some unstoppable tidal wave. He reminded all in the Heavenly Mandate realm to remember his name through one extraordinary feat after another. He was fighting to be at the top of the great path of the realm. Zhang Yuan knew very well that so long as he remained incapable of defeating Yi Futian, he would remain second class. Everyone who saw them both would always be reminded of that one battle. But then again, seeing that mystical way at work, Zhang Yuan came to wonder just how long it would take him to defeat Yi Futian and wash away all that disgrace. The power of one. A voice was heard saying. The crowd turned around and looked at the Crown Prince, who then looked at Yi Futian and replied, "Before you get to the top, there will eventually be a limit, and you will still be weak." Divine light dazzled all over his body as he stepped out right after he finished speaking, looking extremely brilliant. Holy light seemed to shoot from his eyes. It made him look rather harrowing and intense. His entire being emanated an overwhelming bearing. It was as if he was born to be a supreme being. The crowd shuddered somewhat as they stared at that scene. The Crown Prince of the Heavenly Mandate dynasty was finally about to make a move. The Crown Prince extended his palm as he walked out. Boundless killing currents filled the sky. The slaughtering way howled, and again, a Qianqiu brush appeared, falling right into his palm. The might from it was just as powerful as it had been when the 9 worked together using the divine sound. He was a holiness of nirvana, and being at such a plane meant that his power was 10 times more powerful than that of an unblemished saint. Furthermore, due to his superb powers, one could only imagine just how powerful his Qianqiu brush was. The brush commanded the great path of his surroundings as it remained in his hand. It was as if he was able to cut open the space with only a single stroke. Yi Futian stood his ground as his robe billowed behind him. The killing currents howled, and their surroundings were terrifying. Even if the mystical way were to be brought about at that moment, it would still end up being pinned down by the will of slaughter. That was a gap brought about by the difference in plane. Furthermore, the one who stood opposite Yi Futian was the crown prince. He was born to be a supreme being. Even those of his plane would wonder if there was anybody in the realm capable of suppressing and dominating the crown prince of heavenly mandate realm. At that moment, there was yet another figure at the celestial gate whose robes billowed. His white attire was white like snow. The scholar dressed in white stepped out as wind blew on him. He walked forward and said, "Allow me, little brother." Gu Donglu understood that the upcoming fight was his. The grudges of bygone years meant that he and the crown prince would be sworn enemies. This battle was inevitable. It had always been inevitable. It was not only he who understood that. Everyone understood that his father died at the hands of the previous crown prince of the heavenly mandate realm. That man was the brother of the current crown prince. The Gu clan perished because of the heavenly mandate dynasty, leaving Gu Donglu as the sole survivor. At the same time, however, Gu Tianxing alone took out almost half of the mighty ones of the heavenly mandate dynasty. The previous dynastic overlord and crown prince were both slain by him. The enmity between both parties could not have been any deeper. As it stood right now, one was the sole survivor of the Gu clan, who inherited everything that Gu Tianxing had spent years setting up. The other was the new crown prince, whom the dynastic overlord claimed was born to reign supreme. One of them was fated to die at the hand of the other. Such was the fate of both parties. There were 9 who challenged Gu Donglu while the crown prince stayed on the side, keeping his hands to himself, putting both the celestial gate of vast heaven and him on the defensive. Yi Futian took care of that battle for him and smoothened things out for his brother. As such, the upcoming battle was now Gu Donglu's. The clan leader of the Jiang clan looked at him from behind, saying nothing. It was known to all that the battle was bound to happen sooner or later. However, the clan leader did not wish for the battle to come so soon. Gu Donglu had been training in isolation after inheriting the lineage, rising through the planes continuously to become a holiness of nirvana. However, it was due precisely to having inherited too much that his plane remained unstable, and it was impossible for him to have finished processing all that he had inherited. The creational lineage in him was not something he could have processed in a short period of time. In fact, it would have been difficult for him to process it all, even if he had years or even decades to do so. If the lineage that Gu Donglu inherited was a kind of treasure trove, then he needed to spend more time in such a trove, digging bit by bit to unearth those hidden treasures. He needed time more than anything else. The more time he had, the stronger he would get. On the contrary, things were rather different in the case of the crown prince. He had been building a solid foundation throughout his years of training, and every single step he had taken so far was unshakable. The decades spent in training allowed him to polish his powers so that they gleamed with perfection, enabling him to use his powers perfectly. The later the battle was to be fought, the more advantages Gu Donglu would gain. However, those of the heavenly mandate dynasty were in a hurry to wage the war that had to be waged. They did not want to wait, and they, too, wanted to see just how much had Gu Tianxing passed down to Gu Donglu. As such, they showed up en masse just to lean on the celestial gate. Since those of the heavenly mandate dynasty were already there, it was a given that those from the celestial gate needed to do it. It was a battle that Gu Donglu had to fight. Even if he were to lose, the clan leader was sure that Gu Donglu would be able to bear the loss. He would not have been able to shoulder such hopes otherwise. But then again, the clan leader did not wish to see him lose the fight. As such, his eyes were still filled with hope as he looked at the figure who emerged. He hoped to see the legends of those two, that of Gu Tianxing and Gu Jiangnen, both of whom were of extreme renown back in the day, be reborn in Gu Donglu. Furthermore, by the time Gu Donglu was done processing all that he had inherited, he would become even more powerful than either of his predecessors. Yi Futian nodded slightly after seeing his third brother emerge. He then headed sideways to make way for his third brother. That was a battle that belonged to his third brother. It was a fated battle. Regardless if his third brother were to end up winning or losing the fight, He believed that his third brother would inherit the will of those who came before and would continue to walk towards the pinnacle of the realm. Gu Donglu was seen walking out and coming to stand before the crown prince. The two, who were the most talked-about figures of the realm at present, stood on opposing sides. Both were sworn enemies, and the clash between the two attracted all the attention of the heavenly mandate realm. That upcoming battle was one for the books. Their renown was less due to how powerful they actually were and more to the feud between them, as well as the missions that each of them shouldered. The vast space was dead silent. Nobody spoke, and countless watched the two stand against each other without saying anything. Even the great figures of the Violet Heavenly Palace and the Heavenly Mandate Dynasty were doing the same. All of them had their eyes on the battlefield, as the upcoming battle was extremely significant. The one who inherited all from Gu Tianxing was to fight against the one born to become a supreme being. A formless gale whipped up all around them. It contained the aura of the Great Path. The space became extremely stifled in an instant, making many saints feel very, very uncomfortable. Those two holiness of nirvanas would possibly be the two most powerful ones below the Renhuangs of the Heavenly Mandate realm. Yi Tianyu of the Heavenly Mandate Dynasty, the crown prince of the dynasty, said. His name was Yi Tianyu. Wan Yanbing was named after the mystical way he practiced, while Yi Tianyu was named after Tianyu, Heavenly Mandate. The will of the dynastic overlord of the Heavenly Mandate Dynasty was clear as day. Gu Donglu of the Gu clan, Gu Donglu replied calmly. Both parties announced their names as if it was but a regular sparring match between both men. There was not a single hint of the enmity between them. Yet that made it all the more serious. Their surroundings raged, and a gale blew violently. Storms of the Great Path whipped about, and an incredibly dazzling divine picture of Heavenly Mandate appeared. The diagram consumed the Great Path of their surroundings. Currents of the Great Path surged into the diagram in a frenzy, causing it to continue turning and changing. It was as if it was capable of all manner of transformations. The life spirit of that descendant of the main lineage of the Heavenly Mandate Dynasty had finally taken its ultimate form, the divine picture of Heavenly Mandate. It had once been lauded as the most powerful of life spirits in all of the Heavenly Mandate realm. Yet at that moment, a life spirit of unparalleled power appeared behind Gu Donglu, who stood opposite Yi Tianyu. It was a diagram. It spun about like a grand matrix of the heavens, seemingly embodying the Taoist yin and yang, as well as the 9 symbols and celestial light at work. That was the Juexian diagram. It was something that Gu Tianxing passed down to Gu Donglu, enabling Gu Dongliu's life spirit to awaken and evolve until it merged with the Juexian diagram. Many wondered which was the strongest life spirit in the realm. They wondered who among the two most renowned descendants of great figures was the strongest genius of the realm. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. The storm whipped up across the sky, and the divine picture of Heavenly Mandate rose to the air, consuming the will of the Great Path all over the place and multiplying in a frenzy. The storm whipped up across the sky, and the divine picture of Heavenly Mandate rose to the air, consuming the will of the Great Path all over the place and multiplying in a frenzy. Boundless killing currents shot at Gu Donglu right away. Yet, he simply shot a glance at the currents and pointed forward. The symbol of Lin appeared, and the huge ancient symbol stood tall in the sky, shrouding the killing currents right away, preventing the currents from moving. However, the killing currents did not seem to have an end to them, causing the symbol to tremble. It looked as if it was about to crumble. What was even more terrifying was that as the divine picture of Heavenly Mandate multiplied, a Qianqiu brush gave manifested right away and dropped straight down. Yi Tianyu pointed into the air at the brush. The brush drew one stroke and crushed that symbol of Lin, which was already about to crumble. The Qianqiu brush felt like a divine brush of the Great Path, weighing thousands of pounds. It could pin down landscapes and tear through space. Boundless killing currents cut down, intending to destroy the space where Gu Donglu was right then and there. Celestial light glittered on the Juexian diagram. A huge beam of celestial light shot to the air, and an incredibly huge symbol of Bing circled about the screen of light. The symbol clashed with the brush and burst with extremely brilliant celestial light. Etienne remained unfazed and kept his eyes forward. The divine picture of heavenly mandate continued to multiply in the air. One brush after another materialized one after another. Many brushes were seen right above Gu Donglio's head at the same time. Every single brush contained extremely potent killing current. The brush reigning supreme through the eras. Etienne muttered this, and his voice sounded like divine sound of the great path. The brushes in the sky resonated, and they all swiped in the sky at the same time. Every single brush tore through the sky as if someone was trying to bring the sky down with the brushes. The Qianqiu brushes moved in a disorderly and unpredictable manner. It was as if they were simply left to do their own thing without control, yet the messy strokes seemed as if they were out to cut the sky to pieces. Such was the power of the brush reigning supreme through the eras. A snappy cracking noise was heard, and the screen of light was no more. The terrifying strokes lashed out at Gu Donglu, intending to destroy the place where he was. So, that is the true power of the Qianqiu brush. The minds of all who saw it were rattled. The Qianqiu performed far better at the hands of Etienne, the crown prince of Heavenly Mandate dynasty, than how it had been when the nine used the divine sound. It was as if the power of the move was fused with the great path, and the great path seemed to be about to break when cut. The clan leader of the Jiang clan watched the fight quietly at the celestial gate. It was just as he expected. That crown prince was already at the pinnacle when it came to proficiency with offensive arts. His innate talents and his years spent in training in secret made his attacks unshakable, showcasing his master-grade proficiency as soon as he made a move. The dynastic overlord of Heavenly Mandate dynasty lauded the crown prince to be one born to reign supreme, and he did not do so with mere intent to boast. It would have reflected very badly on him if things turned out differently, after all. While the battle had just begun, what Etienne showcased without breaking a sweat looked extremely surreal. Gu Donglu was then seen performing hand seals, causing the Juetian diagram to unleash towering celestial light, circling around him, and there seemed to be a true mystical being right behind him. Holy light shrouded his entire body, and as he continued to perform the seals, one mystical shadow after another emerged from the Juetian diagram at the same time. All of those shadows unleashed impregnable will. It was as if they were manifestations of divine weapons. The ancient symbol of Bing circled around him, causing the surrounding air to shake. The shadows took to the sky in a mere instant, transforming into divine weapons and blasted at the incoming Qianqiu brushes in the air. The Qianqiu brushes were then right above Gu Donglio's head, and the boundless divine weapons blasted at them. Devastating storm of slaughter raged right above his head at that moment, radiating terrifying divine light. The Qianqiu brushes and the divine weapons continued to crumble, destroyed, and dissipated in that terrifying clash. Both parties were formidable. The crowd looked at the two geniuses, finding that their life spirits alone were more than enough to overwhelm an untold number of mighty ones. It was even thought that only a handful of saints would have been able to withstand such attacks from their life spirits. The attacks of Etienne, the crown prince, were fended off, yet he hardly looked fettered. He flashed and came to the air above, his back against the divine picture of heavenly mandate. It was as if his body fused directly with his life spirit. He extended his hand, and the divine picture of heavenly mandate spun, consuming boundless slaughtering way. It was as if there was boundless slaughtering lightning falling down onto his extended hand. A Qianqiu brush, which seemed to have existed for several millennia, fell into his hand. He took hold of the brush. A bolt of lightning tore through the sky. Etienne disappeared with the brush at the same time. There seemed to be a huge gash in the sky. Gu Donglu sensed an intense looming danger. The mystical shadows gathered, and with his palms closed, the divine weapons howled as they tore through the space. Thousands of killing currents rained down in an instant. It was as if thousands of beams of divine light rained down. The scene was utterly harrowing. It was as if it was able to tear the sky down in an instant. The explosiveness of the move was nothing short of terrifying, causing the hearts of those who witnessed the scene to shake violently. Countless divine weapons crumbled, and a brush was seen swiped down right before Gu Donglu, with Yitianyu seen on the other end of the brush. The Juexian diagram burst with towering celestial light in an instant, and a stifled rumble was heard in the air. Gu Donglio's body was thrown below, and boundless killing currents burst through his Juexian diagram as if they were to tear it apart. Yitianyu lowered his head to look at Gu Donglu, who was thrown behind, and said, "I wonder just how capable Gu Tianxing and Gu Jiangnan had been all those years ago. It is a pity that they are no longer in this era." Everyone was able to tell from his words just how arrogant that crown prince was, behaving as if even if both of them were in the same era as he was, he would have been able to overwhelm them all the same. Gu Donglu looked up in the sky. He too knew what he lacked when compared to Yitianyu. He had yet to be able to finish processing all the powers he had been bestowed with, and he did not have time to train the most powerful of attacks available. At that moment, he was simply able to consolidate all the bits that he had acquired and has broken through the plane of holiness of nirvana with them. In truth, the clan leader's concern had been valid. His plane was still unstable. If that fight were to be postponed, he would have had gained a greater advantage. But then again, what was to come would have come all the same. Even if he had yet to process everything that he gained at the Origin Mountains, that battle was still one he could not afford to lose. It had little to do with the significance of the outcome of the battle and more to do with him being unable to bring himself to face his predecessors if he were to lose that battle. The celestial light on the Juexian diagram became even more dazzling. The mystical shadow behind Gu Donglu grew even more glittering. He unleashed his will, shrouding the Juexian diagram, which shuddered. In that instant, there seemed to be many demonic beasts appearing on the diagram, arriving as they were summoned. Thousands of demonic beasts howled as the Juexian diagram continued to be at work. Demonic auras filled the sky as the demonic beasts danced and raged. Gu Donglu inherited the laws of origin, and there were untold numbers of wills of demon emperors throughout the vast Origin Mountains that ended up consumed by him, after all. The howling demons signified their rage, and there seemed to be a feral grace to Gu Donglio's face. He looked up and shot a glance at the sky. Thousands of demonic beasts howled as they tore through the sky, heading straight for Yitianyu. The falling killing currents were destroyed in a frenzy. Yitianyu held onto the Qianqiu brush. He looked as if he was going to be overwhelmed by the demonic beasts. The Qianqiu brush in Yitianyu's hand swiped at the sky again, and the incoming demonic beasts crumbled right away under the might of his Qianqiu brush. However, the demonic beasts seemed to charge without end, heading straight for the crown prince and burying him in that space. The divine picture of heavenly mandate continued to shift, transforming into a Kunpeng, which then merged with the crown prince's body. He took the form of a Kunpeng while, at the same time, the light of Kunpeng burst from with the divine picture of heavenly mandate. He then spread his wings and attacked as if he commanded the divine might of Kunpeng. The art of heavenly mandate, many muttered deep down as they watched the scene before them. That was the ultimate move created by the founder of the dynasty, and that spell had once been known as the number spell in all of the heavenly mandate realm, which was said to be invincible in the heavenly mandate realm. He had once used the ability in the battle back in the Violet Heavenly Palace, and at present, the art of heavenly mandate was seen being used again. A loud cry was heard as if a true Kunpeng had arrived at the scene. The being then spread its wings open, blocking the sky, then swooped down. Shadows of Kunpeng burst from the diagram at the same time, cutting down at the sky in a furious slaughter, destroying countless shadows of demonic beasts. The Kunpeng form of Yitianyu tore through the demonic beasts. The rain of divine golden light cut through the demonic beasts while still holding onto the Qianqiu brush with its claw. Gu Donglio's aura faltered. That was a major attack from a true Kunpeng. Everything that Yitianyu had picked up was a very formidable attack. However, Gu Donglio's expression remained steely. The name of his diagram, Juexian, was taken from the fact that it was the pinnacle of the mystical ways, with its power reigning supreme over all mystical ways. He continued to step out in the air. The Juexian diagram continued to work and shine boundless divine light onto his body, which resonated with him. Boundless mystical shadows appeared at the same time around his body. The aura all about him coursed within him as well. The light of the 9 symbols glittered as they merged within his body. Gu Donglu truly resonated with the Juetian diagram at that point. Despite the fact that he had yet to train in the top attacks, his teacher once said that overwhelming might triumphed over all techniques. When one's spiritual power resonated with pure force and everything reached the very peak, where one discarded all unrelated thoughts and left all skills and techniques behind, one would have been able to bring the greatest of attacks to bear. He stepped out and tore through the air, arriving right before that huge creature that tore through the demonic beasts. He extended his finger, which contained immeasurable power, and clashed with the incoming Qianqiu brush. The space around both of them exploded in a frenzy. Yi Tianyu brought the wings of the Kunpeng down upon Gu Donglu. The light of the 9 symbols glowed extremely brilliantly. They burst with the brightest of rays at the same time, which blinded all who saw it. The light caused the wings of the Kunpeng to slow. It was like a will of strength unlike any other that resonated with his surroundings. That one finger was to destroy everything in its path. Gu Donglu, at that moment, looked as if he was some celestial being. Boom! A stifled rumble was heard, and the spectators saw Yi Tianyu, the crown prince, be flung far above, forced away by the might from one finger of Gu Donglu. One finger against the Qianqiu brush. The hearts of all continued to race. That was confidence and recklessness unlike any other. The great divine diagrams faced off against each other and brought terrifying powers to bear, bringing about massive explosions between them. A devastating storm of the great path whipped up between both men, making the scene look extremely harrowing. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. They're fighting up close and personal? They're fighting up close and personal? The hearts of the spectators raced. At that moment, the battlefield that both of them were on was indeed dark and gloomy. The air was filled with killing intent. Both forces clashed head-on. Gu Donglu took on the Qianqiu brush with a single finger, and his body was under extreme pressure. The Qianqiu brush of the crown prince continued to be shrouded with boundless killing currents. However, Gu Donglio's finger was shrouded by boundless celestial light of the weapons. It was as if his body alone had awakened and fused with all the mystical beings and demons there were. The divine picture of heavenly mandate and the Juetian diagram continued to be at work. Both constructs continued to shift and resonated with the heavenly path. Yi Tianyu's expression was as pointed as it could have been, as his eyes remained fixed on Gu Donglu below. His robes and his hair billowed as he looked at the other man. He coldly uttered, "Do you know the true meaning of heavenly mandate?" Gu Donglu remained looking at him without responding. It is as the term implies. Heavenly mandate, the will and way of the heavens. It is thus a mandate, an order, from the heavens, Yi Tianyu elaborated. His voice sounded overbearing. His surroundings resonated with him as he fused the power of divine sound with his voice. Killing currents rained down in a frenzy as he spoke, drowning the sky below. Countless shadows of Kunpeng dove down, tearing through space. Huge, golden ancient bells dropped one after another. It was as if they were Renhuang bells of the Great Path, heading straight for Gu Donglu. The power of all those attacks resonated at the same time as they headed for their target. Heavenly mandate, a mandate from the heavens. A will of heaven that destroyed everything in its path. The Juetian diagram continued to spin around Gu Donglu. Boundless celestial light burst and thousands of mystical beings and demons roared, charging at that power as they resisted it. Clashes at such close distances made all who saw it feel tingles all over. It was as if that space was about to be completely destroyed. Overbearing celestial light from the Juetian diagrams spun and surged at Gu Donglu, who, at the moment, looked like a true mystical being. The spinning Juetian diagrams centered around him. The will of thousands of mystical and demonic beings merged within his body, consuming the way of all under providence. The light of the 9 symbols burst on his body, which then spun around him. At that moment, Gu Donglu had completely merged with his life spirit. The might of the life spirit was that of his own. An overbearing shadow of a mystical being appeared above his body. The shadow was huge and connected with his life spirit as if the shadow itself was a manifestation of the life spirit. The light of the 9 symbols burst on the shadow, which pointed forward and brought the weapons charging, destroying the killing currents. The symbol of Lin resonated with his surroundings while the symbol of Do destroyed all bells of Renhuang. The 9 symbols fused into a single being and burst from the shadows, resulting in mystical and demonic beings howling. That power actually managed to resist the attacks from Yi Tianyu. That scene caused the hearts of spectators to race. This is formidable indeed. When Gu Donglu fought with Wang Yanbing back then, Wang Yanbing hadn't been able to so much as leave a dent on Gu Donglu. Wang Yanbing was defeated despite using an ultimate sacrificial attack. The hearts of many from Haotian City raced. Despite being lauded as the #1 saint in Haotian City, it was apparent that Wang Yanbing was leagues below both Gu Donglu and the Crown Prince. Both of them were truly the most formidable and the greatest there was, and they would come to represent the pinnacle of 2 of the most powerful of lineages. They would reign supreme among human cultivators of their generation in all of the heavenly mandate realm, making them truly beings at the pinnacle of eternal greatness. They were so formidable that there probably would not be any from the demon realm capable of taking them on. There were many mighty ones from the demon realm present on that day, and they were just as frightened by the fight taking place before them. Talents of human cultivators made them envious, as they possessed the ability to create spells of such levels, bringing their might to the very extreme. Yi Tianyu sensed the power of Gu Donglu. The space around the Crown Prince raged as well. He had to admit that Gu Donglu was indeed a legendary genius like none other created by Gu Tianxing, seeing how his own attacks still remained incapable of defeating Gu Donglu. Heavenly mandate, godly advent, Yi Tianyu said solemnly. That was the ultimate killing move of the art of heavenly mandate, godly advent. The hearts of countless raced. They were surprised at how Yi Tianyu had even finished training in a move of such a high level. It was no surprise when the heavenly mandate dynasty dared to come all the way there and why Yi Tianyu was so boastfully confident. Towering divine light burst from Yi Tianyu's body after the line was heard, which blinded all who saw it. The divine sound throughout the vast space was heard all over the place, resonating with the great path. Boundless will of the great path rained down on Yi Tianyu's body. The divine picture of the heavenly mandate absorbed the powers of his surroundings, which then surged into his body. Yi Tianyu seemed to have clad himself in a nigh indestructible body, which radiated extremely dazzling divine light. Every single beam seemed to be able to pierce through the space, destroying all who were of his plane. He no longer seemed to be himself at that moment. Countless saints below cast saintly light for defense, resisting the beams of divine light with their own might. The light from Yi Tianyu was enough to reach and injure them. Even those who were holiness of nirvanas felt the same way. At that moment, Yi Tianyu looked like a heavenly god. That is really something. Everyone below struggled to look up at Yi Tianyu while under the protection of divine light. At that moment, Yi Tianyu simply looked too dazzling. It was too much for the world to handle. He was so frightening that even the Renhuangs were shocked. They recalled the history of the Heavenly Mandate dynasty. As a coalition of absolute imperials in the Heavenly Mandate realm of old, the Heavenly Mandate dynasty was lauded as the divine dynasty, with the ruling class claiming to be gods of the realm, ruling over the dynastic forces. All cultivators of the vast realm needed to pay tribute and worship them. Their ancestors created arts so terrifying that they were known to be godly arts, the divine art of Heavenly Mandate, with the ultimate move being Heavenly Mandate Godly Advent. It was a move so formidable that all within the Heavenly Mandate realm needed to bow and worship before it as if it was an advent of a god. When such powers were unleashed, many were unable to help but recall the glory of the Heavenly Mandate dynasty. It was difficult to imagine just how powerful Gu Tianxing had been all those years ago before he became capable of killing even the previous dynastic overlord and ended up being injured by the current one. At present, the legendary Crown Prince seemed to be about to inherit the will of his ancestors and bring about a renaissance to the dynasty. He was still a saint, and yet, he already completed learning the art of Heavenly Mandate. The world lauded Zhang Yuan from the violet heavenly palace to be the one with the supreme body of the Great Path. However, from the looks of things, it seemed that the crown prince was the one who had an unmatched constitution instead. He seemed to be a godly manifestation of the heavenly mandate itself, which was probably why the dynastic overlord claimed the prince was one born to reign supreme. He was indeed one who was destined to be a cut above the rest. But then again, the heavenly mandate realm had another who claimed that he possessed the godly body of the heavenly path. The clan leader of the Jiang clan locked his eyes onto the crown prince as well. He came to understand somewhat why the dynastic overlord wanted to send the prince away to train elsewhere in secret. The heavenly mandate dynasty suffered a heavy blow all those years ago, and it was within reason that they worried that if there were to be yet another legendary figure emerging, causing yet another war between the top-notch forces, that the dynasty would end up in ruin. It was just like how Gu Tianxing's actions of fostering Gu Donglu brought about the current state of affairs seen now. The clan leader had to admit that Yi Tianyu was indeed a legendary figure. The crown prince came on that day just for Gu Donglu. He wondered if Gu Donglu would have been able to stop the crown prince on his own. The ones in the crowd began to have doubts and began to be concerned on behalf of Gu Donglu. He was, after all, a member of the celestial gate of vast heaven, and it was Haotian City that the battle was taking place in. There were naturally more people hoping that Gu Donglu would win. Gu Tianxing brought a great many glories to the celestial gate of vast heaven, after all. However, Yi Tianyu was simply too dazzling of a figure at the moment, causing many to have doubts if Gu Donglu would have been able to stop him. Gu Donglu was actually just as brilliant. The mystical and demonic beings of the diagram of Great Path circled about him. The 9 symbols resonated, and his mystical soul became a true mystical being, which was extremely shocking to those who witnessed it. It seemed as if the battle was no longer a battle fought between mortals, but one fought between gods. Many in the world learned of the Juetian diagram in that war all those years ago, thinking that Gu Tianxing was unmatched. Today, I shall rectify that with the art of heavenly mandate, the crown prince said. He was out to prove the superiority of the dynasty with a rich history behind it, as well as that of the art of the heavenly mandate and the divine picture of the heavenly mandate. Gu Donglu looked up at him. The light emanating from both beings continued to clash between them. Devastating aura of the Great Path raged all over the place. Yi Tianyu was seen descending like a god at a speed faster than lightning. The Great Path around him collapsed, and everything was shattered. The killing rays rained down as he charged at Gu Donglu like a god. The Kunpeng spread its wings, and he brought down the Qianqiu brush straight onto Gu Donglu. Boundless aura of the Great Path in the sky coursed below as he moved. His divine light destroyed everything in his path. Nothing was deemed capable of stopping the brush. Gu Donglu performed seals, and the Juetian diagram spun in a frenzy. The mystical shadow was fused with the power of mystical and demonic beings, which then blitzed in the sky. The light of the 9 symbols transformed into celestial light of the Great Path, circling about in the air and clashing with the figure coming down. The devastating storm swept through the place, destroying everything in its path. If there were to be anyone below Renhuang caught in its wake, there was no way they could have survived. The Qianqiu brush and the ancient symbols clashed and blasted on that one figure. The symbols circling around the shadow seemed to have cracked, and the shadow trembled, causing Gu Donglu to tremble as well. His handsome face looked rather twisted at that moment. Both of them were shrouded in blinding light, and they looked extremely divine. Yi Tianyu's long hair wore a golden sheen. It was as if every single strand was transformed into golden swords dancing in the air in divine light. His eyes were incredibly pointed as he stared at Gu Donglu. The Qianqiu brush in the crown prince's hand was thrust forward bit by bit. It was as if Gu Donglu would crumble altogether if he were to even flinch. Many truly felt stifled at the moment. They locked their eyes on that scene in the midair, finding that Gu Dongliu's expression was turning increasingly strained, yet his eyes remained filled with resolve. At that moment, Gu Donglu recalled the voice of his grandfather. The true meaning of a mystical being was to have their soul and spirit meld with the world, to meld with the Great Path, and to meld with everything. He looked at Yi Tianyu with eyes that remained crystal clear. A shadow seemed to have left his body, merging with the Juetian diagram and the ancient symbols, and within that towering, imposing shadow, his body seemed to have completely overlapped with that shadow. It had entered a surreal state of being as if he was a mystical being himself. Tianyu seemed to have sensed that aura. His blade-like eyebrows frowned, and a beam of very high-intensity light blasted, blinding the eyes of all who saw it. The devastating storm raged about in their surroundings. When everyone came to see everything clearly, both Gu Donglu and Yi Tianyu were separated. The auras of both men were faltering. They were both soaked in blood. The mystical shadow crumbled while the godly form shattered. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. In the silent space, warriors were watching those two figures, who were shaken back in the void sky at the same time. In the silent space, warriors were watching those two figures, who were shaken back in the void sky at the same time. The violent airflow over the sky dome gradually dissipated, and it soon completely vanished. There was no sound in the void air at all. The silence was somehow a little terrifying. Both seemed to be injured, but how were their injuries? And even at this moment, they were still staring at each other. The strongest inheritors in the heavenly mandate realm seemed to have both been severely injured in this battle. Was the heavenly mandate divine advent skill still unable to suppress Gu Donglu? Warriors thought to themselves. This was the inheritance that Gu Tianxing gave to Gu Donglu. Within just a few months, he had skipped many levels and entered the Nirvana plane. After entering the Nirvana plane, he did not lose in the battle against the Crown Prince of Heavenly Mandate Dynasty, Yi Tianyu. People of Futian City were exhilarated, and they looked quite agitated. They were not sure about this battle, especially when the Heavenly Mandate Divine skill was released. When the Heavenly Mandate Divine Advent skill befell, they all thought that Gu Donglu would be defeated. Even though Gu Donglu had the super inheritance, he owned it for a very short time. Yi Tianyu had cultivated in seclusion for many years until now he returned as a Nirvana saint with a very stable condition. And his cultivation method also once was the strongest inheritance in the heavenly mandate realm, so no one would think that Gu Donglu had any real advantage in this battle. Gu Donglu did not lose in this battle, which was enough. He still had time. After Gu Donglu stabilized his status and fully digested the power of Gu Tianxing's inheritance, he would keep transforming and become more powerful. At that time, he would be more confident and more likely to defeat Yi Tianyu. Between these two destined opponents, Gu Donglu seemed no longer to be the only one with a disadvantage. Many people looked toward the Crown Prince of the Heavenly Mandate Dynasty. In this battle, Yi Tianji, the Crown Prince of the Heavenly Mandate Dynasty, came to fight in person, using the strongest Heavenly Mandate Divine skill, but he still failed to beat Gu Donglu. Nobody knew how the Violet Heavenly Palace and Heavenly Mandate Dynasty would solve what had happened today. At least, they had failed to lower the morale of the Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven. Even though Wang Yanbing was defeated, Yi Futian had a triumphant victory and solely vanquished 9 opponents, and Gu Donglu was not defeated either. As for the Violet Heavenly Palace, their strongest figure, the supreme form of Great Path Zhan Yuan, had been lost to Yi Futian once, so perhaps the next battle would also be in vain. You are brave to let your soul enter the path. At this moment, Yi Tianyu finally said after the two of them were separated from each other. He looked at Gu Donglu and said, "It seems that what Gu Tianxing has done is meaningful." After these words, he turned and walked away. He did not continue the fight with Gu Donglu. When he turned around, his face looked slightly pale, but his gaze remained firm, and his long hair was blowing in the wind. In this battle, he was wounded. Gu Dongliu's last blow collided with him head-on. Both were badly injured. Gu Donglu saw him turn around, so he turned and left too, with no words. Any words would be meaningless. Although during this battle, he didn't defeat him, he believed that the next time when they met again, he would become stronger. However, he also acknowledged Yi Tianyu's strength. He was the Crown Prince of Heavenly Mandate Dynasty. He was born to be the Supreme. If he had been easy to defeat, the Heavenly Mandate dynasty would not have been which it was. At this time, the blood in his body was boiling, and his life force was fluctuating. Gu Donglio's injury was not slight either. If he continued to fight, he was not sure if he would win, and Yi Tianyu had no absolute confidence either. This battle had to stop here. After all, the collision of the last strike, even for themselves, was not controllable. If they fought again, no one knew what the end would be. After they returned, the space became quiet again. Warriors of Futian City looked toward those powerful figures. They were the ones who would decide how everything would turn out. The Lord of the Heavenly Penalty Palace and the Divine General of the Heavenly Mandates dynasty did not speak. They stood there quietly, but an extremely depressing atmosphere formed between the sky and the earth, making people feel extremely uncomfortable. Heaven and earth once again fell into a dead silence, but it was even weirder this time. The previous silence was due to the end of the battle between the two peak figures. Then what was it this time? No one said anything. Those big figures didn't speak, so everyone else also had to shut up. At this moment, Gu Donglu passed by the two lords of Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven. The Lord of Jiang clan nodded at him, and then he looked up at the void sky in the distance and said, "Since you two have arrived, why do you hide?" Many warriors trembled when they heard what the Lord of Jiang said. Arrived? And they were two people. Just for a moment, a thought came to people's minds and made their hearts tremble. Who else besides those two giants could attract the attention of the two lords of Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven and watch the fight in the dark? At this moment, the oppressive atmosphere became stronger. It was as if the source was here. Many people's hearts thumped fast. They looked up at the sky, which seemed to have turned into a world of thunder. In the endless thunder, there seemed to be a thunder shrine, inside of which a figure was standing with his hands behind his back. He had a distinguished bearing. He was the Lord of the Violet Heavenly Palace. Countless people looked up at the sky. Did he turn the vast and endless world into a world of thunder? With a single thought, the world was turned into that of doomsday. The other person was standing in another location. He was like a deity, with his whole body fully bright, and his majesty incomparable. He was like the king of all beings. He was hailed as the most powerful person in the Heavenly Mandate realm, the Imperial Lord of the Heavenly Mandate dynasty. These two supreme powers came at the same time. They had been quelled by Gu Tianxing in the Origin Mountains and got some injuries. Now it seemed that they had recovered very well and could directly come to Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven. Forceful life forces rushed into the clouds from the Celestial Gate, and countless beams of immortal light were released, shrouding the void sky. The Lord of the Jiang clan looked up at the two in the sky and said, "What is your matter?" "We are here to ask for a person," the Violet Heavenly Palace Lord said. "I am afraid that Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven does not have the person you want," the Lord of Jiang responded. In the past, the Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven had betrayed Gu clan, so why should you let the descendant of Gu clan return now? Since we have even come here in person, please hand him over to us. "We don't want to fight against the Celestial Gate again," the Violet Heavenly Palace Lord said. There was a sense of threat in his calm voice. Moreover, he also said that the Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven had betrayed the Gu clan in the past, which was devious. He was trying to alienate the Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven from Gu Donglu. Even though Gu Donglu did not believe their statement, if they repeated it many times, it would still leave a crack in his heart. "You seem unwilling to come. Why are you still here?" "Please go back," said the Lord of the Jiang clan. Boom! Over the sky, the Imperial Lord of Heavenly Mandate dynasty took a step forward and pressed downward with infinite and supreme majesty. Behind him, many Renhuang-level warriors also stepped out. With just one step, they made the sky tremble, and countless people in the lower sky felt a real sense of death. Many people trembled slightly. Was the Heavenly Mandate dynasty ready to start a war? "What if I will take him away anyway?" the Imperial Lord of Heavenly Mandate dynasty said arrogantly, his voice shrouding the endless void sky. Many people stared at him, and the sense of killing emitting from his body made the world feel that he might really start a war here. Not only that, but after Yi Tianyu retreated, he actually left from behind the crowd under several Renhuang figures' escort. Did everyone guess it wrong? People's hearts beat faster. Did they send Etianyu away in advance in order to prepare for the war? The light of thunder engulfed the void sky and kept radiating out, covering the whole celestial gate of vast heaven under the glare of thunder. The violet heavenly palace will not see a second Gu Tianxing emerge, said the heavenly palace lord. These two supreme-level figures both launched an attack in person. The destructive laws of thunder continued falling down. The Renhuang figures behind him followed, and at the same time, stomped down, crushing the sky dome. Let's go, someone said. Warriors below felt something unusual. Were they going to start a war? Once the war began, not to mention themselves, the entire city would be affected, and even disasters would befall all cities around. People started to panic, and many were preparing to evacuate. Everyone had emitted a sense of war. The Lord of Jiang clan looked up above the void sky, then fell his gaze on the Lord of Hua clan and the warriors behind him. He said, "In the war of that time, we chose our own interest, so we compromised on some things. Today, after almost 100 years, it's time we take these things back." In that battle, the Gu clan was exterminated. They betrayed Gu clan, which led to the Gu clan's destruction. What about today? Would they repeat history, hand over Gu Donglu, and sacrifice this last descendant of Gu clan, who was also the most promising and talented figure of the celestial gate of vast heaven? Disciples of the celestial gate, who wants to fight? The lord of the Jiang clan shouted, his voice spreading across the celestial gate. In the immortal gate, celestial light was blooming. Dazzling Renhuang celestial matrices were launched, and countless warriors stepped into the void sky. I want to fight. I want to fight. Voices came from everywhere in the space. A horrifying aura was formed in the entire celestial gate of vast heaven. Disciples of the celestial gate will never stop fighting until the last one of us dies, the lord of the Jiang clan continued. At that time, only Gu Donglu survived. Now, they would not stop fighting until there was only one last person left. We want to fight. At this moment, below celestial gate, a group of warriors rose up. They were the Wang clan, who had just wanted to set foot in the celestial gate. I want to fight. In the distance, gradually more figures rose up and shouted. Gradually, countless warriors of the celestial gate of vast heaven surrounded warriors of the heavenly mandate dynasty and the violet heavenly palace. The power of the whole city shared the same belief. An invisible force was formed. The faith of the whole city overwhelmed the world. Even the two giants, the lord of the violet heavenly palace and the imperial lord of the heavenly mandate dynasty, felt the pressure. Power of the whole city. Yi Futian stood among the crowd, and he was slightly touched by this scene. This battle had historical roots for the celestial gate of vast heaven, but it was also a battle for the third brother. A weak faith was the reason for every defeat. Today, although Gu Donglu was not the ruler of the celestial gate of vast heaven, he could be called the hope of Futian city. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. The forces of Futian city, large or small, had all stepped out, one after another. At that moment, people began to understand why the celestial gate of vast heaven was said to be the celestial gate of Futian city. The forces of Futian city, large or small, had all stepped out, one after another. At that moment, people began to understand why the celestial gate of vast heaven was said to be the celestial gate of Futian city. Perhaps it was because the words of the celestial gate of vast heaven gate lord triggered people. At that time, the Gu clan died for the celestial gate and fought until only Gu Donglu was left. Now, they were in the same situation. Only when there was one man could they cease the war. This reminded people of Futian city how glorious the celestial gate of vast heaven was in the era of Gu Tianxing, and how prosperous the Futian city was at that time. No matter where they went, they all were proud to be a member of the celestial gate of vast heaven. If the celestial gate collapsed, then there would be no Futian city in the world. Futian city would be ruled by the violet heavenly palace and the heavenly mandate dynasty. From then on, they would become vassals, and the forces would not have the status as they had today, nor would they have the opportunity to enter the core of the Celestial Gate. The Heavenly Mandate dynasty was an imperial alliance where they would not be allowed to be in charge. Of course, it might also be because of Gu Donglio's fight, from which they saw his determination and hope for the future. Perhaps he was really a character who could change the times, reviving the Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven and letting Futian City return to the top of Heavenly Mandate realm. Moreover, this time, it seemed that not only Gu Donglu but Gu Donglio's younger brother Yi Futian was also extraordinary. The dynastic overlord of the Heavenly Mandate dynasty and the Violet Heavenly Palace Lord frowned slightly. The faith of all beings could be very powerful. When all people had one faith, they could produce a superpower, which resonated with the Great Law. There will shrouded the boundless void sky and could even see the Heavenly Mandate dynasty crown prince, Yi Tianyu, who was preparing to leave. Seeing many warriors around Yi Tianyu, forces of Futian City deployed troops occupying their nearby locations and didn't show obvious intention to target them. However, as long as the war started, they would definitely do something to Yi Tianyu. Since the two major forces of the Heavenly Mandate realm were coming to attack the Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven, this storm would be a real war. Silence permeated the Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven, and the repressive atmosphere shrouded everyone's heart. Those external top forces stood in different places and watched everything happening. If the Heavenly Mandate dynasty and the Violet Heavenly Palace wanted to forcibly attack the Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven, they would suffer heavy losses too. Even if the two forces were really able to exterminate the Celestial Gate, they would also have to lose a lot of vitality. What's more, there was a celestial matrix inside the Celestial Gate, which was the main battlefield of the Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven. This war probably would not happen. Do you really want to protect him even at the expense of the Celestial Gate's destruction? The Heavenly Mandate dynastic overlord asked. His voice was cold, and he stood in the upper sky like a god as if he might hit the Celestial Gate at any time. Do you need me to repeat it again? The Celestial Gate will stop fighting only after there is only one person left, the Lord of the Jiang clan responded. What's more, are you sure you can destroy the Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven? Even if the Celestial Gate collapses, perhaps then it will be your turn to decline. I only need Gu Donglu. The voice of the Violet Heavenly Palace Lord contained thunder, trembling in the eardrums of every warrior. How about I give Gu Donglu to you, and you leave the Crown Prince of Heavenly Mandate dynasty and the supreme form of the Great Path of Violet Heavenly Palace here? The Lord of Hua clan also said. Just one person? How could they hand over this person? Could the dynastic overlord hand over the Crown Prince of the Heavenly Mandate dynasty? Could the Violet Heavenly Palace hand over Zhan Yuan, their supreme form of Great Path? Do you want to fight or not? Asked the head of the Wang clan, seeing that they were silent. The dynastic overlord of Heavenly Mandate dynasty glanced at him and then said coldly, the Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven did not keep their promise in the past and took the descendant of the Gu clan back to the Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven. You should always remember what you have done. Immediately after these words, the overwhelming life force of sky and earth quickly dissipated. And when the divine light dispersed, the figure in the void sky stepped away. At the same time, the light of thunder also dispersed, and the Lord of the Violet Heavenly Palace also left. The two giants disappeared directly. At this moment, the entire city of Futian seemed to relax, and everyone's heart settled down. Finally, they were not ready to go to war. They were also afraid, fearing they would repeat everything of that year and weaken the strength of the Heavenly Dynasty. Their vitality would be greatly hurt, and at that time, and other forces would benefit from it. At that time, the battle made the Heavenly Mandate dynasty fall from its peak, but it was still slightly stronger than other forces over the years. However, if it experienced such a war again, the Heavenly Mandates could not afford it. In fact, today, the Heavenly Mandate dynasty and the Violet Heavenly Palace came to the Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven for a gamble. The previous battle and the appearance of the dynastic overlord and the palace lord, in the end, were all parts of the game. Once the Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven lost, the consequence would be disastrous. However, it was clear that during this game, Gu Donglu and the celestial gate of vast heaven both showed strong determination, which led to the withdrawal of the Heavenly Mandate dynasty and the Heavenly Palace from Futian City. Their bodies flickered in the air, and the warriors of both sides retreated like tides and soon disappeared into the void sky. This grand storm also came to an end. However, perhaps today was just the beginning. Later, the undercurrent of conflict would surge in the Heavenly Mandate realm. At least the clash between the two sides had intensified, and the battle between Gu Donglu and Yi Tianyu officially announced the direct confrontation of the two peak forces. No one knew exactly when this storm would completely break out, but everyone knew its final result would directly affect the political geography of the Heavenly Mandate realm. Was this the change of Heavenly Mandate predicted by that demon prophet? But the people of the Celestial Gate were still there. Warriors in Futian City looked up toward the ladder. The Lord of Jiang clan stepped forward, saluting the world as he said, "There was an agreement between Jiang clan, Hua clan, and Gu clan during the battle at that time. The Gu clan was facing extermination, and I promised Gu Tianxing that if there was a chance in the future, I would make the Celestial Gate of vast heaven prosper again at all costs." Gu Tianxing was able to leave alone at that time, but for the safety of the Celestial Gate, he made his own choice. Now, I have also made my choice, and I will never regret it. People of the Celestial City who are unwilling to intervene, I respect your decision. For those of you who are willing to fight with the Celestial Gate, when the Celestial Gate returns to its peak, we will alter the order and determine how to inherit the Celestial Gate's mystical ways, the Lord of Jiang clan said loudly. All the people of Futian City were able to hear his voice. Many people were deeply touched. Today would be a turning point for the Celestial Gate. Whether it would be destruction or rebirth was unknown. I see many people from forces of the Heavenly Mandate realm are still here. If you are willing to come to visit the Celestial Gate as friends, welcome, the Lord of Jiang clan continued. These warriors just cupped hands and bid farewell. Nobody went to the Celestial Gate. The situation of opposition had been formed, and some of their behavior could easily cause misunderstandings, not to mention entering the Celestial Gate. They didn't want to be involved. Only Yi Futian and his party walked towards the Celestial Gate with no fear. The Divine Elephant Clan was his background, but he was not a warrior from the Divine Elephant Clan. Therefore, he did not represent the stand of the Divine Elephant Clan. However, if the Heavenly Mandate dynasty and the Violet Heaven Palace wanted to lay a hand on him, they had to consider the Divine Elephant Clan's position. "Thank you, sir." Yi Futian walked to the Lord of the Jiang clan and saluted. His "thank you" was on behalf of his third brother. If the Celestial Gate of vast heaven had not been determined, they would never let go of the third brother. The top giants showed up on the scene just to persuade the Celestial Gate of vast heaven to hand him over. If the Celestial Gate had quivered, third brother would not have been safe. My young friend Yi defeated the 9 strongest warriors of the Heavenly Mandate dynasty. I should be the one to thank you first, the Lord of Jiang clan said with a smile. He was also happy that Gu Donglu could have such a brother. This young man had extraordinary talents and could, one day, definitely stand at the top. "Let's go to the Celestial Gate," the Lord of Jiang clan said, and the whole group started heading toward the Celestial Gate. Yi Futian and Gu Donglu walked together. "After today, you will still have to be careful," the Lord of the Jiang clan reminded him. Although the Heavenly Mandate dynasty did not dare to do anything to Yi Futian openly, the Heavenly Mandate realm was too big. It had too many powerful people, and they might use some special approaches. "I understand," Yi Futian said and nodded. "During this time, Yi, you can cultivate in the Celestial Gate," the Lord of Jiang clan said. "Okay." Yi Futian nodded and did not refuse. His cultivation of the mystical way also needed to stabilize for a while. "I see that your relationship with Qin He of Brahma's Pure Sky seems unusual. If you can get shelter from the Brahma's Pure Sky Lord, the Heavenly Mandate dynasty and Violet Heavenly Palace will probably not dare touch you," the Lord of Hua clan beside them said. The Lord of the Jiang clan had told him that Gu Donglu didn't want to marry, so he wouldn't force him, but now many people were spreading rumors about Yi Futian and Qin He. If they had feelings for each other and got together, it would be helpful for Yi Futian and Gu Donglu. Previously, The Heavenly Mandate dynasty also had this idea and wanted to seek marriage with the Brahma's pure sky. It was not an unspeakable thing, just icing on the cake. Xia Qingyuan beside them heard those words and was stunned. The sparkle in her eyes changed. She sighed secretly to herself. He was a person born to be extraordinary, destined to leave other people behind. When they were in Emperor Xia's realm, she was able to help him, but now she could only act as a sidekick. There would always be better people around him, either herself or Qin He. In the future, there might be even better women around him. Maybe she shouldn't have had any thoughts in the first place. Some people were destined to be missed. Qin He and I are just friends. We are not like the rumors say. Yi Futian smiled and said, "If so, just let it be." But Qin He, as the first maiden of Brahma's pure sky, must be very outstanding in all aspects, the Lord of Hua clan whispered. Yi Futian said nothing. His relationship with Qin He was too distant, and he had no such thoughts. The crowd gradually dispersed, and soon people all left. Xia Qingyuan walked alone toward the direction of the cloud sea. Yi Futian was talking with Gu Donglu. He noticed Xia Qingyuan walk towards that side, stop on the edge of a mountain peak above the celestial gate, and stand there quietly, watching the sea of clouds. "What happened?" Yi Futian asked. "I want to go back to the Emperor Xia's realm," Xia Qingyuan said softly. "Okay," Yi Futian said with a smile, nodding. Xia Qingyuan looked up at Yi Futian. "This be asterisk starred. Are you planning to leave now? How do you plan to go back?" Yi Futian said with a smile while Xia Qingyuan stared at him coldly. Xia Qingyuan froze. Suddenly she realized her problem. How could she go back? Could she go back with her plane as it was? Here was the Heaven Mandate realm, one of the 9 supreme Renhuang realms, and it was even difficult to return to the Crimson Dragon realm by herself. Seeing the smile on Yi Futian's face, Xia Qingyuan stared at him fiercely. Yi Futian smiled and shrugged, saying, "I don't know how far away it is from Emperor Xia's realm, but I suggest your highness should stay here." Yi Futian patted Xia Qingyuan's shoulder, then walked away. Seeing him leave, Xia Qingyuan said coldly, "Yi Futian, you be asterisk starred. Is this the first time your highness has realized it?" Yi Futian said carelessly and left. Seeing the receding figure, Xia Qingyuan didn't know if she should laugh or cry. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Xia Qingyuan cursed Yi Futian quietly in her heart, but Yi Futian, who turned around and left, also had a bitter smile on his face. Xia Qingyuan cursed Yi Futian quietly in her heart, but Yi Futian, who turned around and left, also had a bitter smile on his face. Over these years, Xia Qingyuan had been accompanying him since they were Emperor Xia's realm, and she had helped him a lot. She had gradually changed from the quarrelsome princess to what she was now. Recently, Xia Qingyuan no longer quarreled with him and just stayed quietly beside him. How could he not understand her feelings? But in most situations, he could just act silly. He seemed careless, which gave Xia Qingyuan some hope, but in fact, he just had no idea what to do. He didn't know what to deal with the relationship between him and Xia Qingyuan. It was impossible that he didn't have feelings for her at all. The cold and proud princess had sacrificed a lot for him, and he knew it. But before all, he came to the Supreme Path realm to find Jiyu. He was very clear, and Xia Qingyuan knew it too. So, in fact, both of them had never thought about other things before. Even though Xia Qingyuan had feelings for him, she would just bury it in her heart. But recently he asked people of Brahma's pure sky about Jiyu twice, and the answers he got made him a little bit unwilling to face reality and even want to escape from it. He and Xia Qingyuan both knew that all they were doing might be nothing but his illusion. Jiyu was no longer alive. Until then, something had changed in Xia Qingyuan's heart. However, it was a bit difficult for him to completely forget Jiyu and stay with Xia Qingyuan. Perhaps, the relationship between them was still a bit distant. Unlike her, Jiyu had been with Yi Futian since they were both young. They had spent the most beautiful years of their lifetime together, and everything between them was natural but also unforgettable. However, if he just told Xia Qingyuan to leave, it would be a bit too cruel, so he could only act silly, perhaps, to give both sides more time. Above the celestial gate of vast heaven, the celestial mist was everywhere. This was the real celestial land, and the whole celestial gate was shrouded in the immortal air. Yi Futian would temporarily stay in the celestial gate for cultivation. Yu Xing went to the Dragon God clan, Yi Wuchen went to the Wang clan to cultivate in mystical ways. The Sword Saint also cultivated the demonic sword over the celestial gate. Xia Qingyuan chose to cultivate alone in the Sea of Clouds. Now, for Xia Qingyuan, she had no option but to make herself stronger. The hazy Sea of Clouds was like a paradise on earth. A black and white lotus appeared over Xia Qingyuan's body, being refined, blooming and fading as if it was undergoing reincarnation again and again. There were two distinct life forces flowing around her body, which were two kinds of wills that were even totally incompatible. One was the wills of life, for living forever. One was the wills of death, for terminating life. But now, life and death, these two opposite forces, appeared in her body at the same time, permeating the space. During the storm in the Origin Mountains at that time, she experienced a catastrophic disaster and almost lost her life. Yi Futian took her into the abyss and guarded her so she could survive in that horrible situation. But then she was blessed by the misfortune. From the dangerous situation, she understood the will of death, which was the opposite of the will of life. There was great horror between life and death. Now she understood the wills of life and the will of death, these two paths, which she thought might refine her cultivation. In front of another cliff in the celestial gate of vast heaven, there was also a place full of clouds and mists. Yi Futian was sitting there quietly and seemed to have entered a state of self-oblivion. There seemed to be a faint sparkle blooming from his body, making his perception extremely powerful. It made his thoughts blend into the world. His soul was roaring into the sea of clouds that suspended in the air, into the white clouds that flew above the sky, into the omnipresent wind between the sky and the earth. Everything was so clear. It was as if he didn't need to use his eyes but was able to see this world more clearly and more real. He had a faint feeling of detachment, as if he had detached from all forms of existence, detached from everything. It was as if his life would be sublimated. The so-called mystical way was used when the cultivator's thought merged into the sky and the earth and resonated with them, thus emanating the celestial power. Behind Yi Futian, a figure of spiritual soul showed up. It perceived the great path wills of the sky and earth. His perception spread toward the distance, and his celestial spirit seemed to be able to see extremely distant places and continuously extended outward. Yi Futian felt like his soul had left his body, and his whole person was in nothingness, but now he seemed to be able to see more clearly about all the laws in the world. He could resonate with the world with the change of just one thought. His figure of nothingness lingered between the sky and the earth, continually drifting away, and even came out of the celestial gate. At this moment, Yi Futian seemed to perceive something. In the nothingness, the soul shadow looked up at the sky, where there seemed to be a similar life force. He looked curiously over there, but the next moment his body of nothingness trembled violently, and Yi Futian's heart also thumped hard with it. He could actually perceive the existence of another figure of nothingness as if it was right in front of him. If that had been all, he would not have been surprised, but he couldn't be more familiar with that face of the figure. His heart shook violently. It was as if he had been hit by something. He released his thoughts madly, and in the nothingness, he looked at that gorgeous figure, his eyes moist. "Jiu," Yi Futian murmured. "Jiu." She was still alive. Virum. In the nothingness, the illusory soul disappeared instantly as if it had never shown up. "Jiu!" Yi Futian shouted, his eyes suddenly wide open. He stood up and ran to the place where she had stood. However, there was only endless nothingness. Nothing was there, not to mention a figure like Jiu. "It is impossible," Yi Futian yelled in his heart. He could not have been wrong. It was absolutely impossible. Jiu left in the form of a spiritual soul, so was she still alive in the form of soul today? However, since she was alive and had already come, why should she leave again? "Jiu," he called. Yi Futian's eyes became extremely sharp. It was as if he could see through the nothingness. He started to run and chased in one direction. Was it a dream or his fantasy? He didn't believe that he would not be able to distinguish between reality and illusion when he had reached such a high cultivation level. Unless it was a very powerful illusion attack, he could not have hallucinations. So, it was most likely that it was really Jiu. She was still alive. Must be alive. Friend Yi. At this time, someone in the celestial gate saw Yi Futian and called him. However, Yi Futian went straight into the distance as if he hadn't seen him. What's going on? The people of the celestial gate asked each other, looking at Yi Futian in confusion. He seems to be chasing after something. Did anything happen? They wondered. Yi Futian ran forward aimlessly. There had been no trace of Jiu at all, but he just went ahead according to his feelings. In the state of the celestial soul, his perception was unprecedentedly powerful, and that feeling was also so terrifyingly keen that his eyes could even capture bodiless beings. Soon, Yi Futian stepped out of the celestial gate of vast heaven and continued moving in one direction. His speed was very fast, and he didn't stop at all. After a while, Yi Futian looked ahead, and a strange look flashed in his eyes. Had he been wrong this time? He was too confident, but even in the Saint Plane, could he suffer from illusions? Maybe his perception was no longer as keen as before, or was it because he missed her too much? Yi Futian took a few steps forward and drifted down slowly without continuing chasing. After he arrived here, that kind of feeling seemed to have disappeared. He looked toward the palace in front of him. There were still people outside at this moment. They saw Yi Futian and saluted. "We are glad to meet Mr. Yi." "Glad to meet you too, goddesses," Yi Futian said and nodded slightly. Have the goddesses of the Brahma's pure sky not returned yet? It had been a while since the battle, but Brahma's pure sky's people were still here. So, he had run to where Brahma's pure sky was stationed. Before, he had also lived here, so he guessed that he might have had a hallucination, and perhaps that kind of familiar feeling was because of this palace. He had lived here for a long time. Not yet. Sister Qin has been waiting for Mr. Yi, a lady said. Yi Futian pointed at himself and said, "Is Miss Qin still here?" "I haven't bid farewell to Mr. Yi yet, so of course I am still waiting," a gentle voice came. A stunning lady came near with a smile. It was Qin He. That day, Mr. Yi directly entered the celestial gate of vast heaven and didn't say goodbye, so I had to wait here for you. Now, finally, Mr. Yi comes out of the celestial gate, so I should bid farewell to you now, Qin He said. Her voice was extremely gentle, just like a spring breeze. Besides, her words did not go beyond courtesy, but she also showed her concern for Yi Futian at the same time. Even Yi Futian had to say that she was a bit dangerous, enough to enrapture every top figure. "I didn't say goodbye that day. It's my fault," Yi Futian said. "I should apologize to Goddess." "Never mind. If you are interested, please come to Brahma's pure sky one day and have a cup of tea with me," Qin He said, smiling. Yi Futian nodded slightly and said, "Absolutely. Okay then, I should leave now." "I will see you out," Yi Futian said. "Thanks for your kindness, but I am afraid Mr. Yi must have a lot of things to do." "I can leave with the people of my sect," Qin He said. Her voice was still gentle. "Goddess Qin, take care of yourself." Yi Futian didn't say much but just cupped his hand and said, "Please." "Thank you, Mr. Yi. You take care too," Qin He said. Yi Futian nodded, turned around, and left. After he left, Qin He returned to the palace and came in front of someone. The person in front of her was also an unusual lady. As Qin He, the first maiden of Brahma's pure sky, appeared in front of her, Qin He looked quite timid and just stood there without speaking. "Let's return to Brahma's pure sky," the woman said. "Aye," everyone nodded and answered. Soon this large group of people left by air. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. The land of the demon realm was vast and boundless. The land of the demon realm was vast and boundless. In the vast demon realm, the Origin Mountains was the birthplace of the demon realm. In addition to the demon metropolis, there were several other bustling areas in the demon realm. For example, the celestial dragon 8 demon city, including Purple Gold Dragon City, Azure Dragon City, Black Dragon City, Fire Dragon City, and Frost Dragon City, and other 3 form an extremely prosperous district in the demon realm. 8 dragon kings ruled the 8 dragon cities. However, all the warriors in the demon realm knew that the ancestral land of the Dragon God clan was not the celestial dragon 8 demon city, but the Dragon Abyss in their center. The Dragon Abyss was an incredibly vast area where many islands were floating in the air. Amid the floating islands, there was an endless abyss. Here, you could often see real dragons looming. The endless mountains and islands of Dragon Abyss were also called the Dragon God Mountain. Here was the true holy land of the dragon race, and those mountains were shaped like dragons. In this vast area of the Dragon Abyss, one could also see real adult dragons teaching young dragons to cultivate and travel through the mountains and abyss. At this time, in this area, 2 figures were walking in the air. One of them had horns on his head, wore a dragon robe over his body, and had a very strong demonic aura. Apparently, he transformed from a true dragon. The man next to him was burly and dressed in a black robe, with a majestic and cold temperament all over him. Dragon Emperor Grandpa, who is this human? At this time, 100-meter-long dragon circled up in the void sky and came in front of 2 of them. The dragon's beard was long, but the dragon's face looked quite immature. Obviously, this dragon was young in the dragon family. He was looking at Yu Sheng, wondering who this man was. He is called Yu Sheng. He is here for cultivation, the powerful figure of the Dragon God clan said with a smile. Yi Futian said that he would send Yu Sheng to the Dragon God clan for cultivation, and he agreed. If that guy was not willing to teach, he would teach Yu Sheng the power of dragon deity by himself. Since the prophet predicted that the heavenly mandate realm would change, he had to make some preparations in advance. Where is Dragon Emperor Grandpa taking him for cultivation? The young dragon asked curiously. Kids don't need to care about such things. Go cultivate, the old dragon said with a smile. He kept heading forward with Yu Sheng. The young dragon wobbled and circled down, somewhat depressed. There were very few humans here. These 2 figures kept moving forward, and after they came to a place, they even went all the way down to the bottom of the Dragon God Mountain area. Yu Sheng was a little confused, and when he looked down, he seemed to perceive a terrifying life force from it. Here, this area is the forbidden place of our dragon clan, the powerful figure of the Dragon God clan said to Yu Sheng. Yu Sheng was even more puzzled. Since it was a forbidden area, why did he bring him here? Could it be that the person who the Dragon God clan wanted to teach him stayed here in the forbidden area? With confusion, Yu Sheng went deep into the abyss with him. Yu Sheng's eyes narrowed slightly as he stared down. In the abyss, he felt an extremely intimidating demonic will. It was as if it was everywhere in this land of the abyss. They went down deep into a place that looked like hellish space of the demonic law. It was like the underground of the Dragon Abyss, with many mountains inserted into this district upside down, which seemed to be the extension of the mountains above. Over these countless mountains, there were infinite chains. Each chain was made by divine weapons, reflecting extremely bright light. The infinite chains seemed all leading to one place. They stopped, and the big figure of the Dragon God clan raised his head and looked in one direction. Yu Sheng also looked toward that side and saw a huge body curling behind the upside-down peaks. The twisted body was so huge that it wrapped more than 10 peaks. The scene was very shocking. Its skull was immensely large, and even its eyes were larger than human bodies. The dragon scales on it were black, with a terrifying dark sheen. A demon dragon, Yu Sheng murmured, staring at the front. It was definitely a giant-level demon dragon. What was even more shocking was that its huge body seemed to be wrapped with infinite chains. It was as if the endless chains on the peaks were all just used to lock its body. I haven't come to see you for a long time. The powerful figure of the Dragon God clan, who came with Yu Sheng, spoke to the locked demon dragon. The demon dragon's huge eyes stared at him. His body circled upward, and he didn't say anything. He had been here for over 300 years. It didn't matter whether or not anyone came to visit him. Of course, 300 years was not too far away for him. You must be bored of cultivating here for hundreds of years. I met a human cultivator outside who cultivated in the demonic path, so I brought him here and asked if you would accept him as a disciple and teach him. The powerful figure of the Dragon God clan continued to speak, but the demon dragon seemed to have no interest. He took a glance at Yu Sheng and then looked at the powerful figure of the Dragon God clan and said, "I have no interest in teaching disciples." His voice was extremely deep. It had a slight sense of depression, which was quite horrifying. Yu Sheng stood there and could clearly feel a suffocating oppression. He didn't know what crime the demon dragon had committed to keeping him locked here. "I know," the powerful figure of the Dragon God clan continued, "but he is a little different. It seems he was maybe destined to meet you. You can take a look at him first." "Why is he different?" the demon dragon said coldly, and his voice still had no fluctuation. "It's hard to tell, but maybe you would be interested. Just take a look, and if you don't have any interest, I will take him away," said the powerful figure of the Dragon God clan again. The demon dragon ignored him and just looked at him quietly. "I will get out first, and if you are not interested, you just let Yu Sheng go out by himself, and I will take him away," the powerful figure of the Dragon God clan continued. After these words, he rose into the air and left. Yu Sheng showed a strange look. Didn't he worry if the demon dragon would hurt him? What exactly happened between the demon dragon and the Dragon God clan? In their dialogue, there seemed to be no anger at all, and they both looked very calm. When the dragon saw him leaving, his huge eyes glanced over Yu Sheng. Was it because his previous master was a human cultivator that he sent a human to follow him for cultivation? However, he was never interested in teaching anyone to cultivate. He only admired stronger power. "Go away," the demon dragon said to Yu Sheng. No matter how talented this human was, he would not be interested. Yu Sheng frowned when he heard what he said, a bit unhappy. The character of this demon dragon was a bit weird. "I should leave then." He didn't say much and just rose straight up, about to leave. Since he didn't show any interest, Yu Sheng was not interested in him either. He didn't need others to teach him to cultivate. He could do it alone. The demon dragon also noticed Yu Sheng's dissatisfaction, and a look of contempt flashed across his huge eyes. He was just of the same plane. How dare he show discontent? His sharp claw swept through the air, and suddenly, a rumbling sound came out. Yu Sheng immediately felt extremely strong pressure. He saw a huge demonic claw smashing down at him, crushing the void sky. The dark claw seemed to be transformed from a giant dragon claw, and the power was terrifying. Not everyone is qualified to cultivate in demonic power. An indifferent and domineering voice spat out from the mouth of the demon dragon. Over Yu Sheng's body, the demonic power roared and rumbled, and a gust of mighty demonic life force swept out. He stepped in the void sky, and the dark golden light circled around his body. Demon statues appeared behind him, and all the demons rushed out. A huge demon palm print blasted out and went straight toward that huge demonic claw. With a loud noise, the claw and the palm print collapsed at the same time. The scene made the dragon show a different color in his eyes. Although he deliberately controlled his power and wanted to give Yu Sheng a lesson, warning Yu Sheng that no one was qualified to cultivate in the demonic law, he thought it was still enough to crush Yu Sheng based on his plane. However, Yu Sheng blocked it. The dragon's huge eyes stared at Yu Sheng, and he felt somewhat familiar with the demonic airflow around Yu Sheng. The huge body moved forward, and the chains made clanging sounds. His huge claw smashed down toward Yu Sheng as if the might of heavenly law befell. Yu Sheng just felt suffocated and fixed his eyes on the claw approaching from the sky. This time, the demon dragon did not control his power. One could imagine how terrifying it was. The demonic might over Yu Sheng's body snarled and roared, and many demon shadows appeared. But the smashing claw was like a devil's claw, and the gap of their planes was too large to overcome. Yu Sheng could not even escape and was directly smashed down. He growled wildly, and his big eyes just stared at the other side. "How dare you resist, kid?" The demon dragon spoke coldly. His huge body approached, his eyes fixed on Yu Sheng, his claws exerted strength slightly. Yu Sheng was frantically struggling, but it was of no use. The claws were still exerting pressure. It was as if he wanted to crush Yu Xing's body. Yu Xing stared at him coldly, the demonic might in his body reaching its max. He was on the brink of dying, so he had to use up every ounce of his strength, but even so, it was still useless. A peerless demonic shadow appeared and used a pair of cold eyes, sweeping toward the other side. When Demon Dragon saw the demonic shadow, he was stunned first, and then his huge body shivered violently. As the dragon's body trembled more and more violently, the whole abyss seemed to be shivering. He let his claw loose, and when the shivering dragon saw Yu Sheng's chilly gaze, he lowered his extremely proud head and kneeled down as if in worship. The countless upside-down peaks of the abyss were still shaking. Outside of the abyss, the powerful figure of the Dragon God clan frowned. He looked around and saw the mountains of the Dragon Abyss were trembling. Many warriors of the Dragon clan rose up and watched this scene in shock. So, what happened? The dragon's snarl rang through the sky and the earth. Many young dragons in the Dragon Abyss were shocked and dropped to the ground, and many adult giant dragons were also trembling and groveling. The whole bottomless Dragon Abyss seemed to be trembling at this moment. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. The sound of dragons snarling kept coming from the Dragon Abyss. Many Dragon Clan warriors headed toward the direction at the same time. The sound of dragons snarling kept coming from the Dragon Abyss. Many Dragon Clan warriors headed toward the direction at the same time. The mountains were still trembling, and the dragons snarling lingered around the world for a very long time. This sound seemed to come from the forbidden area of the Dragon God clan. It was rumored that a dragon that had sinned was imprisoned in the forbidden area of the Dragon God clan. This dragon sinner was extremely talented, and at his time, he even had the opportunity to become the head of the Dragon God clan. His strength was extremely intimidating. According to the elders of the Dragon God clan, his strength might not be less than the head of the Dragon God clan. As for what crime he committed, adult dragons all knew a little bit. After all, a true dragon had a long life, and the adult dragons had lived for many years, so they naturally understood what happened in the past. Some young dragons also had heard some rumors from their elders. It was said that he used to be the mount for a big figure at that time. When the serious accident happened in the Divine Prefecture, and he was directly detained in the forbidden area and had not been able to go outside until now. However, after hundreds of years of imprisonment, the sound of his dragon's snarling came from the forbidden area. How could the Dragon God clan not be trembling? Outside the forbidden area, the powerful figure of the Dragon God clan, who came with Yu Sheng, was standing there, his eyes looking down, full of confusion. What happened? Many huge demon dragons heard the sound and came from the sky, all looking over. The echo of the dragon's snarling gradually dissipated, and many huge eyes were looking at the forbidden abyss. However, at this moment, a voice came from the silent forbidden area, saying, "Starting today, I will start to guide his cultivation here. Don't disturb me." The sound coming from the abyss resonated in the void sky, which made many of dragon warriors tremble. Who would be guided by him in cultivation? They didn't know what happened. Good. The powerful figure of the Dragon clan, who came with Yu Sheng, nodded. Did this guy finally agree to accept disciples after being silent for more than 300 years? It was a good thing. It seemed that Yu Sheng indeed had potential. Otherwise, that guy would not have had such a strong reaction. Or maybe, from Yu Sheng, he might have seen a trace of that person. The powerful figure did not have much contact with that person and was not very familiar with him. Still, when he saw Yu Sheng's aggressive demonic attack and outstanding talent, he thought Yu Sheng might be related to the demon dragon, so he brought him here. Now, it seemed that his judgment was correct. Nobody is allowed to stay here. You shall not approach the forbidden land. He looked up and shouted at warriors of the Dragon God clan. Immediately, warriors of the Dragon God clan circled upward, and their huge eyes still stared down. They soon left with unhappy expressions. They were driven away before they figured out what happened. But since this spot was a forbidden area, they didn't dare to break in at will. It was said that that elder dragon who was locked there was extremely ferocious. They dared not provoke him. After the warriors had left, the powerful figure of the Dragon God clan took a deep look down, and then his body flickered, and he also left. Yuxing was good at using demonic power, and the person the old dragon followed at that time should have also been proficient in human demonic cultivation methods. And, since he had brought Yuxing here, he could also teach him the power of dragon deity. He didn't need to worry about everything here. In the future, there would inevitably be one more top figure in the heavenly mandate realm. Things that would happen in this young generation must be exciting. After he left, the demonic cloud over the forbidden ground kept rolling and restored its former silence. Beneath the rolling demonic cloud, no one knew what had happened deep in the abyss, and they would never know that the fierce demon dragon of the Dragon God clan was kneeling on the ground and worshipping a weak human cultivator. Time flew, and Yuxing had stayed in the forbidden dragon abyss of the Dragon God clan and cultivated for a while. Yi Wuchen was cultivating in mystical ways in the Wang family of Vast Heaven City, while Yi Futian and Xia Qingyuan cultivated above the celestial gate of Vast Heaven. During this time, the heavenly mandate realm seemed extraordinarily calm, but there was also a rising undercurrent beneath the seemingly calm surface. Soon, year 10030 of the Divine Prefecture calendar had arrived. It had been 2 years since Yi Futian and others came to the heavenly mandate realm. In the past 2 years, it seemed like a lot of things had happened. It was like a dream. During this period, another major event happened in the Vast Heaven dynasty. It was said that when warriors of the Vast Heaven went to their ancestors' mausoleum to worship, they discovered some secrets left by their ancestors. However, the details were not clear, and further information was blocked by the heavenly mandate dynasty. Probably only insiders knew something. However, according to the rumors from the outside world, this time, the discovery from the heavenly mandate dynasty might be extraordinary and might even greatly improve the strength of the heavenly mandate dynasty. Now, the heavenly mandate dynasty had deployed its imperial warriors in sequence to the land of imperial ancestors' mausoleum. This had made many people aware of the opportunity, and many top powers also wanted to pry for more information. After all, if the heavenly mandate dynasty became stronger, it would directly affect the situation in the heavenly mandate realm and also affect themselves. The celestial gate of Vast Heaven should be the most disturbing one. After all, in such a sensitive period, if the heavenly mandate dynasty became stronger, it would be a disaster for the celestial gate of Vast Heaven. Many people were paying attention to the updates of the celestial gate of Vast Heaven, but the celestial gate of Vast Heaven was as calm as before, without any response. However, something seemed to be going on in the heavenly mandate dynasty. On this day, many warriors appeared in front of the palace hall of the heavenly mandate dynasty. They seemed to be waiting for something. The heavenly mandate dynasty crown prince Yi Tianyu was also there. If other people of the heavenly mandate realm saw this scene, they would be very suspicious. In the heavenly mandate realm, who was worthy of waiting for the crown prince of the heavenly mandate dynasty? Perhaps there were not many people. After a while, a dazzling beam of divine light descended over the void sky, and a ray of light shone down from above. The next moment, a group of figures appeared out of nowhere at the front of the main hall of the heavenly mandate dynasty. The heavenly mandate dynasty was heavily guarded, but now, none of the warriors stood up. It was as if they had already known these people would come. All the people in this group looked extremely outstanding, especially those in the front row. They were also very young. Although their life forces were very strong, they would not be grown-ups for a long time. Seeing them show up, a smile cracked across Yi Tianyu's face. He walked ahead, and all the warriors behind him followed. "I haven't seen you all for a long time, and you still look great," Yi Tianyu said with a smile. The people behind him were all big figures of the heavenly mandate dynasty, and many of them were even Renhuang-level warriors, but they dared not neglect at this moment because they all knew where these people came from. "Brother Yi is the same. You are awesome," another person said with a smile. "Thank you all for crossing the realm and coming here, brothers," Yi Tianyu said. It was clear that these people did not belong to the heavenly mandate realm, but were from other realms, but, of course, they were also from one of the 9 supreme realms. I heard that Brother E was born in the Heavenly Mandate Dynasty, the supreme power of the Heavenly Mandate Realm, and used to be the king of Heaven Mandate Realm. I've been wishing to visit you, and now I have the chance. Please forgive us if we have disturbed you, another person said with a laugh. They used to cultivate in the same sect, which was an instruction simply for academics, but in fact, they were from different forces. Undoubtedly, even in the entire Nine Supreme Realm, the Heavenly Mandate Dynasty, which Yi Tianyu belonged to, was also one of the top forces. Of course not. This time we Heavenly Mandate Dynasty had a discovery in our Imperial Ancestors' Mausoleum, so I invited all of you to come see if it might help our cultivation, Yi Tianxi said with a smile. As they talked, they walked forward. In front of the Hall Palace, armored sergeants were lined up on both sides, and the atmosphere looked extremely solemn. It seemed that although Yi Tianyu was extremely arrogant, he was not an unsociable person with no connection with others. Obviously, he made many friends when cultivating outside. Let's go and meet His Majesty first, someone suggested. Since they had come here, they must first visit Yi Tianyu's father, the Lord of Heavenly Dynasty. It was basic courtesy. Father has been already waiting for you, Yi Tianxi said with a smile. He kept walking with them. They stepped onto the royal staircase and came to a towering temple below. There, they saw a figure standing on the staircase with his hands behind his back, smiling and looking at them, saying, "Welcome to our Heavenly Dynasty, my young friends." They stopped, all of them saluting the Lord of the Dynasty. They said, "We are here to salute you, Your Majesty. You are all my son's brothers, so no need to be excessively polite. Please take a seat," the dynastic overlord of Heavenly Mandate Dynasty said with a smile. There was another important reason that he sent Yi Tianyu away, which was to let him associate with the best people. One would be more motivated to make progress only if he was surrounded by outstanding people. What happened in the Heavenly Mandate Dynasty soon spread out and was known to the people of the Heavenly Mandate Realm. It didn't take long for the world to finally know where Yi Tianyu had been sent to cultivate. At the same time, people were also amazed by the decision of the Heavenly Mandate Dynasty. They even let outsiders enter the Imperial Ancestors' Mausoleum, which was the ancestral land of the Heavenly Mandate Dynasty. What on earth did the Heavenly Mandate Dynasty discover there? They were even willing to share it with outsiders. Just when the news of the Heavenly Mandate Dynasty had not been fully digested, another supreme force in the Heavenly Mandate Realm, Brahma's Pure Sky, also had important news. Brahma's Pure Sky showed the intention to invite warriors of the Heavenly Mandate Realm to go visit them, and they had even invited the Crown Prince of the Heavenly Mandate Dynasty. Some people had speculated that the Brahma's Pure Sky intended to find a spiritual partner for Qin He, the first maiden. The news caused an earthquake to the Heavenly Mandate Realm. What happened recently? So much sensational news came out one after another. When did Brahma's Pure Sky take the initiative to look for spiritual partners for saintesses? Never. The saintesses of the Brahmas Pure were holy and unparalleled, and none of the goddesses of the nine skies were married. The first maiden Qin He would become a goddess of nine skies in the future and even one of Brahma's Pure Sky's successor, but now the Brahma's Pure Sky was looking for a spiritual partner for her. Were they crazy? Could it be that Brahma's Pure Sky wanted to arrange a political marriage? If Brahma's Pure Sky had been the celestial gate of vast heaven and had been facing a crisis, people might not be surprised, but now it seemed that Brahma's Pure Sky had not encountered any difficulties yet. So why did they do this? Unless the world guessed wrong. But if it was wrong, what was the reason for Brahma's Pure Sky to do so? Everything was so abnormal. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.